Easter is just around the corner here, so we're going to be making an Easter recipe today on the food plant. So I'm going to be making a classic Easter recipe, which is going to be just hot cross buns. So these hot cross buns are just the classic, what you would assume from a hot cross bun, which is just plain bun with some sultanas in it and a cross on the top to finish it. Pretty basic stuff. We're going to be adding some spices in too, just to make it a bit more interesting, bit of cinnamon, bit of nutmeg, bit of zest as well. This particular recipe is actually more like old school with eggs and butter in it. So to replace the eggs, I'm going to be using some flax meal to replace that. To replace the butter, just some margarine. If you don't like using margarine, any sort of solidified oil basically works the same, because that's actually what margarine is anyway. That's pretty much all there is to that. So like I said, it's a really simple recipe, easy to follow along, so let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is make our egg replacer. So put in 1/3 of a cup of water into a bowl and 2 tablespoons of ground flax. Alright, mix that together. Alright, you can see that's thickened up nicely. It's like our eggs. So you can just leave that to the side for now. Right now, take a saucepan on a medium heat and put in 1/2 cup of water. And about 1/4 cup of plain flour. Alright, whisk this together. Alright, you need to keep this on this medium heat, whisking it every now and again until it's thickened up. It'll take about 3 to 5 minutes. It's been just under 3 minutes, so it didn't take that long. Okay, so while this is still hot, put in 1 cup of almond milk. And 1/4 cup of maple syrup. Alright, mix that all together. Okay, that's about combined, so you can take that off the heat now. So this mixture here is our warm mixture, which will help the buns to go sort of like soft and and stay moist. So it should turn out a good result now. Now that we've got this, so you can just leave this to the side and then we work on the next. So now for the dry ingredients, put 3.5 cups of plain flour into a mixing bowl and add in about 1 tablespoon of yeast. That's about 14 grams of yeast. Alright, and add to that the zest of 1 lemon and the zest of 1 orange. It's about 1 teaspoon each. And 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon and 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg. Alright, just combine that. Back at the milk mixture now. So that's cooled a bit. What you want to do is take that egg replacer you made before, the flax meal, put that in. And just stir it all up, combine it. Alright, let's finish mixing. So now take that milk mixture and pour it in. Alright, and combine this together. Alright, so that's combined. So now put in 80 grams of margarine. And mix that in. Okay. So that margarine's mostly mixed in. You can see this dough's quite sticky. So what you need to do now is continue mixing it until it forms a dough. You need to continuously add in 1/4 cup of plain flour at a time until you reach the sort of consistency you want. You want sort of like a nice ball of dough to form. So just keep adding 1/4 cup of flour at a time until you get that consistency. Alright, this is more or less the consistency you're after. So it's a little sticky, that's alright. But basically easily to work in your hand without getting it sort of stuck to your hand. You don't want it like super dry, it needs to be sort of soft. So I only added another 3/4 cup of flour. So but yours will vary depending on how you put the other stuff together. But that's pretty much the consistency you're after. So it's really soft and just a very tiny bit sticky. That sort of thing. So that's about that. So spread a bit of oil around the bowl. So this is just sort of to help it not stick to the bowl, because we're going to leave this to rise now. So let's put some oil, throw it back in, cover this with some cling wrap. Right, and just leave this to sit for 20 minutes. So that's been about 20 minutes from that dough, so you can see it's pretty much doubled in size. So just turn it out into this floured board. Right, a bit of flour over it, it's a bit wet on the bottom. Okay, press it out a bit. Should be nice and soft. Okay, now at this stage you want to mix in whatever you want to mix into it. So we're going to keep this one simple and just go with sultanas. So I'm putting 1 cup of sultanas. But 1 cup of whatever you like really will go fine in this. So let's get all those in. And just fold it through a bit. Alright, that's about mixed through. So divide this up into 8 balls. You can make less or more if depending on what size you want. So I've got the 8 balls there. So now I've got a baking tray here. This one's about 30 centimeters by 20 centimeters. So you don't want one that's too big because you want to squeeze them together so they sort of pop up a bit. So I put some baking paper in to make it easy to lift out. I've oiled it up. So now I'll just put them all in. Alright, now cover this with cling wrap again. Right, and leave this to rise for another 20 minutes. So while we wait for those hot cross buns to rise, we're going to make the paste for the crosses. So I've got here about 1/4 cup of plain flour, and what you need to do is mix in a bit of water, just about a tablespoon or so at a time, until you reach the sort of paste consistency you're after. So probably about 3 tablespoons of water should do this. Alright, so that's more or less what you're going for. So this is like a runny sort of glue sort of consistency. So now just get this into a piping bag. Now for a piping bag, you can either get a piping bag or you can just use some grease-proof paper and just roll it up into a cone shape. Fold it down. That's about that. Right, that's all in. So basically you just sort of close it up and squeeze it down a bit. And when you're ready to use it, you just cut off the bottom for how thick you want the crosses. So you can just leave that to the side for now. Alright, that's been about 20 minutes on those buns. So they popped up nicely, that's why we let them rise twice. So, take the piping bag you made, cut a hole in the bottom. Yep. Just pop some crosses on. Alright, that's more or less it. So bake this in a 180-degree oven for 30 minutes. While that finishes cooking, we need to make the glaze. So 2 tablespoons of almond milk and 1 tablespoon of maple syrup. Mix that. Okay, so that's done out of the oven. So now take that glaze that you made and just put it over the top of all of them. So there is the finished result there. So you can see here, it looks quite nice. It's got a nice golden sort of finish to it. That's in part to the sugar and a bit in part to the margarine we put in, but it's mainly the glaze that we put on at the end. The sugar that's in the maple syrup gives it that nice sort of shiny finish to it. You can see the cross looks quite nice. We've gone for the traditional cross recipe, which is just flour and water. That's the most classic way to make the cross. So that's why you've got a nice, nice classic looking cross on there. You can see some of the sultanas showing through. That looks nice. You can smell the cinnamon, the nutmeg, which is pretty good. Now, this has got a little bit of weight to it, but it's not like really dense and heavy. It's actually quite sort of light in area. I'll sort of break it open here so you can sort of see inside. It's nice and sort of nice and airy, which is quite good. Now we did that warming of the milk and with the flour water base at the very start of the recipe. That's what allows it to sort of lock in moisture, that particular technique. So this will hold a lot of moisture for quite a while, just provided you keep it in an airtight container, of course, because air dries things out. So that is quite good like that. So I cooked this for 30 minutes and it's come out just a very touch doughy, which is actually how hot cross buns actually made. If you don't like it like that, just cook it for longer. Just bear in mind that if you do cook it for longer, you will get a sort of firmer finish on the crust, so it depends if you want a more crusty one. But as it is, 30 minutes at 180 degrees is pretty much the correct time. If you don't mind it being a little doughy, which of course for hot cross buns is quite nice. So that's basically all there is to it. There's not really much more than that. It's a hot cross bun, eat it as you would. So that is quite a good recipe. That's all it is too. So enjoy.